It's the last call for the Chevrolet Malibu. That is right, 2025 is the end of the line for this sedan. And in fact, this is the last American sedan currently in the US. Ford isn't in this market anymore. Dodge currently isn't in this market. They will be in a few months, but that's basically it. Americans prefer crossovers. It's a sad day. But GM is also changing up their product line, and the Malibu just isn't part of that future. However, in today's video, we're going to check out what the Chevrolet Malibu has to offer. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you're looking at buying an affordable daily driver right now, you don't care if it's a crossover or a sedan, maybe taking a look at the Chevrolet Malibu one more time might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Copeland Chevrolet in Hudson, Massachusetts for letting them down here to check out the Chevrolet Malibu. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Chevrolet inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For 2025 with the Chevrolet Malibu, you're looking at a starting cost of just over $29,000. Now, we do have one optional package. As you can tell, it's the Sport package, which comes in just below $900, giving us a lower profile appearance to this car and also making it look somewhat sporty. There's some add-ons here that some of you might actually want or stay away from. We'll dive into that in a minute. At $29,000 though, this is actually one of the more affordable options right now in the midsize sedan segment. Even though the Chevrolet Malibu is a bit more outdated compared to a Camry or Honda Accord, a lot of the midsize sedans right now currently that are selling are over $30,000, and most of the Malibu's rivals unfortunately fall under that tariff issue. So if you're looking for an affordable car, you don't want to spend over a sticker, the Malibu might actually be a great choice in 2025. Getting into what you have aesthetically here for the 2025 Chevrolet Malibu 1LT, up front will be LED daytime running lights, but halogen headlamps. That is right, halogen headlamps in 2025. That lets you know the Chevrolet doesn't really have much of a future planned for this model moving forward. However, there are a few things I want to point out here about this car more specifically, and that is the paint color. We have Nightshade Metallic, which from far away looks like it's black, especially with the gloss black wheels, but it is a deep and royal purple, which looks really nice and classy for us today. Now, since we have the Sport package, you're going to have a gloss black front grille and also blacked out chrome, which gives this car a lower profile appearance and also makes it look somewhat sinister. Also, with this package, you can have blacked out badging for that Chevrolet badge. But really though, it still looks pretty cool. It also looks somewhat sporty here from the outside, and honestly, it is a bit sad seeing that Chevrolet never gave this car a mid-cycle refresh, or a refresh it most certainly deserved. Now, taking a look at the side profile, by going with the Sport package, you are going to receive 19-inch gloss black wheels. Now, I know what you're saying here. 19-inch wheels on a car like this is going to create a lot of road noise and some harshness to the ride quality. And it might. I mean, you can go with 17-inch wheels as standard equipment on the 1LT, and that might actually be a better choice with the LS 16. So you have some options here. I think with the 19s though, it makes this car look a bit more upscale and grand. If you want to maximize the interior insulation and drown out some of that road noise, the 17s probably would be the better choice. Now, better yet here with this model, you are going to have body color match side mirror caps. They are power adjustable and they do fold, which is nice, but no turn signal indicators, which is to be expected for a car under $30,000. However, we do have blind spot detection for added safety. Then making our way around to the back, you are going to have LED tail lamps through the Sports package. Now, I know what you're saying though, but I don't want the gloss black wheels. I'm not a huge fan of the gloss black front grille. Well, with the LED tail lamps, that makes this car look modern and sleek, which you're definitely going to want here for this car for 2025. For the lower portion of the rear bumper, you're not going to have visible exhaust outlets, which is to be expected here for a car in this market. Makes this car look a bit more cleaner for the rear end. And also for this generation, you had that sloping roof line, which we saw a lot of 5 to 10 years ago, and it's great to see that Chevrolet still carried that on even well into 2025, but it still is pretty sad to see that Chevrolet is not going to make another generation for this car. Taking a quick peek under the hood for the 2025 Chevrolet Malibu, you're looking at a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 163 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a CVT, and front-wheel drive does come standard. No option for all-wheel drive, by the way. Now, compared to other cars that use naturally aspirated 4 cylinders in this market, because the Malibu has a Turbo 4, it might feel a bit more quick and spry. We'll find out later on in this video. Now also with a turbo 4, it's not going to be as efficient as some rivals that are using hybrid powertrains. However, for 2025, the Chevrolet Malibu is more than sufficient and adequate, at least when you take a look at the fuel economy. You have right around 28 miles per gallon in the city and 36 miles per gallon on the highway for a combined average of 31 miles per gallon, which actually falls right in line with other cars in this market. So if you're looking for an affordable daily driver that's also economical, the Chevrolet Malibu at least has you covered there. Hopping inside the Chevrolet Malibu 1LT, you're greeted by heated cloth seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having power adjustability, whereas the passenger will have to manually find the ideal seating position, which is to be expected for a car under $30,000 to start. Usually you'd have to go a little higher up in the trim levels to have the passenger seat be power adjustable. So if that's the case, if that's what you really want, you got to spend a little extra for 2025 with the Malibu. Comfort-wise, these seats provide a lot of cushioning and they're actually quite plush. So when you are driving in the city and suburbs or on those weekday commutes, you should find yourself pretty comfortable here being behind the wheel of this model. Bolstering and support though isn't too aggressive, and that's to be expected for a car in this market. Even the new Toyota Camry for the LE, those seats are very firm, where I think with the Malibu, actually these seats are a bit more comfortable. So if you're comparing this to a Toyota Camry, with that Camry, to have this amount of comfort, you have to go with the SE, and that's a bit more than what we're seeing here with the 1LT. So if you want to stay below $30,000, the Malibu at least has you there. For the rest of the interior though, this is old school Chevrolet. This is last generation, last decade Chevrolet. And this right here is why, and there's a telltale sign as to why Chevrolet isn't going to continue the Malibu nameplate moving forward in the 2020s, because you don't have a full digital gauge cluster or newer infotainment system here like you have with the Chevrolet Trax and Trailblazer. But what you do have though is a small information display in between your analog gauges, which pretty much showcases basic information. So it's not going to be super in-depth or super intuitive, but it does give you all the information that you would desire when you are driving this car on a daily basis. So you have your digital speedometer here, also average fuel economy statistics. You can also check out information pertaining to your vehicle, such as remaining fuel life, air filter life, oil pressure, tire pressure monitoring system, also your coolant temperature and units of measurement, and then obviously your fuel economy statistics once again. So a lot of basic info, but more than enough for a lot of you just looking for a point A to point B vehicle. And you can scroll through all this by using the buttons on the right side of the steering wheel. Taking a look at the infotainment system, this is Chevrolet's old software that we don't really see anymore in the product line. Only a few vehicles, such as the Chevrolet Blazer, have this infotainment system. So very small screen, but you do have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto compatibility, OnStar services, and better yet, you do have dual zone climate control. That is right, dual zone climate control for the 1LT. If you're someone who's not tech focused or tech savvy, this is the way to go, because you are still going to have physical buttons and dials for that dual zone climate control, AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction. Also, your T-level heated seats found just beneath the screen. You also got physical buttons and dials for your volume and tuning, also your home screen and back button, and also your auto start stop button. So very analog, very tactile here for the Chevrolet Malibu. For the screen itself though, you are going to have a climate menu. So that's right, you can adjust your dual zone climate control from here, but is it necessary though, since you have the physical buttons? Not at all. At the bottom of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, your radio, your smartphone connectivity. Also, you can quickly call your OnStar Call Advisor, and then your climate control menu as well. When placing the Malibu in reverse, you're going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory, but that's it. No other camera angles to work with, no side view, no front view. That's to be expected for a car under $30,000. As we continue on, beneath the head unit and beneath the button layout here on the dashboard, you are going to have a cubby for some smaller items, maybe a smartphone or wallet. For the center console itself, very straightforward here, just a gear selector, your electronic parking brake, your traction control on and off button, 2 cup holders. It is flanked by this gloss gray trim, so that will be difficult to keep clean on a weekly and yearly basis. For the center storage compartment, there is plenty of room for some smaller items. Actually, you could probably store a couple tech gadgets, maybe even a couple small water bottles too, so that's really great to see. And then to round out the front seating area, above is a panoramic moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Then for passengers in the second row, in true midsize sedan fashion, You're going to have a lot of interior space here. I mean, you're looking at 38 inches of legroom, which would be on par with a lot of cars in this market that still exist, like that Toyota Camry, like that Honda Accord, like that Nissan Altima, and maybe even the Kia K5. This right here is why smaller families bought midsize sedans, because this was a better choice over a Chevrolet Cruze, or a long time ago, the Chevrolet Cavalier. But still though, even with the seat adjusted all the way back and on a recline, I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here, which is pretty great to see. Now, even with the panoramic moonroof, I don't feel too claustrophobic here in regards to that headroom, but I know for a fact that tall passengers will be hitting their head on the headliner. So obviously you would go in the crossover direction if you're looking for a family-friendly vehicle. But as a daily driver, and if you have people in the second row most of the time, this is still very practical and conducive for that family. Now, with the cloth upholstery though, does give you some grip here. Actually, the bolstering isn't too bad either. So if your driver is on a spirited drive, you will not be swinging around too much being back here. Also, even though you do have an aggressive center hump, I think you can squeeze in a third person in the center. The Malibu is wide enough where you can accommodate a third person back here. So that just gives you some versatility here with this sedan. Also back here, you will have two rear air vents, but no USB-C or USB-A outlet, but you are going to have a 12-volt outlet as well. And then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Obviously, with this being a Malibu, you're not going to receive a power trunk. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 16 cubic feet of room, which, believe it or not, is still very competitive in this class against the Camry, against the Accord, against that Kia K5. So if you're looking for a car that is spacious, practical, and family-friendly, the Malibu still has you covered there, despite the fact this car is somewhat old and on an older platform. Now, with 16 cubic feet of room, you can easily store a lot of luggage back here. So if you're going on a road trip with the family or a significant other, you could probably store 8 or 9 bags of luggage here. I was able to fit all my camera gear with no issues at all. That's 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. Also, this cargo area is deceptively wide, just like we saw with the second row. So I think this car is actually quite practical for what it is, even in 2025. Obviously, you can lower the second row seats to maximize that cargo capacity, but even as a 2-row vehicle here, you have plenty of room for your weekly activities. The last American family sedan, unless you include the Model 3 from Tesla, and possibly the Cadillac CT4 and CT5, but in the mainstream segments that go head-to-head with the Honda Accord, the Toyota Camry, even the Kia K5, the Chevrolet Malibu is the last American sedan that goes head-to-head with these models. Now, this is not an indictment on the American manufacturers, because there is no energy here for cars like this anymore from the American consumer. They want crossovers. They've shown that for the last 20 years. But it is sad that we don't have sedans anymore. You know, maybe you don't want to have a crossover. You don't want to be higher up off the ground. You want to have some connectivity to the road. And, well, the Malibu is the last car in the Chevrolet lineup that gives you that. Now, obviously, with this 4-cylinder engine, it is not a barnstormer. Paired with a CVT, you know, I mean, there's nothing exciting. There's nothing to write home about. But this isn't the first car that had a CVT, and not the last sedan that will either. I would like to see Chevrolet keep this car, though, in the lineup for buyers who don't want to go in the crossover direction and are looking for an affordable alternative, because you really don't have anything like that. I mean, outside of the Chevrolet Trax and the Trailblazer. But if you want a sedan, this is the last call for you. Now, I do think that if Chevrolet wanted to keep a sedan in the lineup, they'd have to drop in a hybrid powertrain. Even though this car is actually pretty good on fuel economy, a hybrid powertrain would most certainly be what the doctor ordered for this car. But in the current day, in 2025, what the Malibu is offering here is really just basic transportation. More so than a lot of other competitors in this market, because the Camry, the Honda Accord have gotten a bit more tech savvy. They're also hybrid now. So there's a lot more to work with from those models than before. And as you can tell with this generation, it's old. It's a bit archaic here. I mean, no full digital gauge cluster, small infotainment system, no Google-based software here. I mean, you know, this is why Chevrolet's moving on from this car. Now, as a daily commuter, though, if you're someone who wants to buy a Malibu for 2025, it's quiet, it's soft, and it's spacious. It hits all the intangible points there for a vehicle in this segment. And if you're someone who needs a vehicle under $30,000, this fits the bill. Now, with this being an LT, it's not sporty, it's not dynamic, it's not going to be aggressive at all. So it's solely for point A to point B driving. So as we get on the highway here and experience highway speeds with the Malibu, one thing I will say is that with this CVT, you can tell this is an earlier generation for this transmission because, yes, there's some droning here. It's not super loud, so at least it's not like a Nissan transmission or even some of the transmissions that we have experienced from Toyota and Honda, but there's droning there. But a lot of the new CVTs do mimic gear shifts quite well, especially eCVTs. So you can definitely tell that this is an older model. Now, one thing that does impress me, and even with the 19-inch wheels that we have on our model today, road noise isn't too bad. Now, of course, with this car being primarily designed for comfort, when you go over the bumps and imperfections, you really don't feel them. It's not super rigid here with this chassis, so you are going to still have a comfortable driving experience. Road noise-wise, again, not too bad here. However, if you don't want to deal with all that road noise, maybe you want to maximize your fuel economy, not going with the Sport Appearance Package might be the way to go, because you got the 17-inch wheels as standard equipment for the LT. And on the highway, with a somewhat poorly paved road here, this is where the road noise does kick in, but we're at 70 miles an hour, so you would expect that for a car with 19s. But I do think, though, that this engine is more than capable to pass slower drivers and merge on highways very safely, so you're not going to be begging for that power as a daily driver and as a commuter car, but I do think, though, that in the Chevrolet lineup, there's better with the crossovers. Regardless of whether you go with the Trax, the Trailblazer, I think the Equinox would be the way to go here. Especially at around $30,000, the Equinox just makes a lot more sense. But the advantages of going with the Malibu are this. One, you don't have a lot of body roll here since you have that lower center of gravity. And two, the braking is actually pretty good here, nice and strong. Also with the handling, it is decently weighted, and that's mostly due to the fact that this is somewhat of an older generation and platform. A lot of cars now have light steering, where with the Chevrolet Malibu, that just isn't the case. So all in all, after spending some time with the Chevrolet Malibu today, I fully understand why the brand is moving on from this segment. It just doesn't make any sense, I mean, especially with buyers preferring the Trax, the Trailblazer, and Equinox, but then also, do you know how much development it would require to make a car that is competitive with a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord in 2025? You would have to develop a hybrid engine. You have to develop a chassis that actually gives you rigidity and refinement. It makes a lot more sense for Chevrolet to just go in the crossover direction. But for those of you looking for an affordable vehicle, you want affordable transportation that is efficient and also gives you some creature comforts and amenities, that's where the Chevrolet Malibu still has a place in 2025. In 2026, probably not, but if you are someone who needs an affordable daily driver, a point A to point B vehicle, you don't want to spend over $30,000, and you also want a car that's larger than some compact sedans, you have that here with the Malibu. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Chevrolet Malibu. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.